And without further delay, we would like to begin with our first session for the day. The subject being increasing connect, reach and market, lessons from Bharat for mobile marketers. Sessioning this chair, we have with us Lloyd Matthias, angel investor and business strategist. Joining us in the panel, we have Anita Nair, COO, Media, Branding and Communications, Patanjali. Archana Agarwal, Vice President, Media, Airtel. Dipinder Singh, Vice President, Marketing, Pristine Care. Harish Aswani, AVP, Digital Marketing and E-Commerce, Medanta. Shantanu Chauhan, Associate Director, Marketing, Noise. And Saumadeep Chatterjee, Director, Brand Marketing, Snapdeal. Can I please request you to join us on stage? Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Madhu, for introducing the panel. And thanks, Bijoya and MOBEXX team at Team AdGully for doing this event. I think you managed to get a great collection of people involved with the mobile industry and the mobile marketing space. So thank you for inviting us. To kickstart this channel, we've got a good mix of people from various categories, right? From Airtel, who of course is, besides being a telco operator, also has a big business in terms of as an advertiser. People can actually advertise on the Airtel platform. And there are brands that are users that have penetrated really deep. Anita from Patanjali, they go deep down the socioeconomic spectrum. But just to lay a context, if I could say, I think what has happened at two levels, at 2016 when Jio launched, and again at 2020 when the pandemic hit us, is that mobile penetration has gone deeper down the socioeconomic strata. But not just mobile voice penetration, I think the real explosion has been data, right? So when 2016, when Jio launched, they actually crashed the prices of data. And today, a lot of our economy is actually reaping the benefit of the lowest cost data in the world. And that has opened up a whole ecosystem of businesses that till about a decade ago was inconceivable. The fact that you go down to very small towns, we're talking of around 700 to 750 million Indians who in some form are able to access the internet, right? And we're talking of around 400 million people who actually transact or do some e-commerce through the mobile phone. The important point to remember in this entire exercise is that for a lot of these users, the mobile is their first interface with the internet. Unlike all us guys who had the privilege of having laptops and computers and have seen web interfaces, for them, the mobile is the primary interface. And very often, they do almost all they do through the app ecosystem. So I think that's just a quick background. A minor challenge, but something that we have to recognize, is also there is a certain limited real estate available on a smartphone, right? A lot of us live our lives by apps, but there's a finite number of apps that can sit in, right? Some of us prioritize in terms of transportation apps, in terms of e-commerce apps, in terms of social media apps, in terms of chat apps. And also people are conscious about the fact that the more apps you have, it drains your batteries faster, so that's another challenge. What I'm going to do is do a quick round robin and ask each of the people on the panel, how do they use the mobile ecosystem? And to start with, how big do they see the opportunity in Bharat, in rural India, in small town India, a lot of whom are first-time users of the internet? And to what extent are they able to leverage this? So maybe I'll start with Saumadeep, and love to get Snapdeal's perspective in terms of how do you, I know that a lot of your focus is beyond the top 20 cities, and how do you move on? So just talk through how big you see the opportunity is and some of the things that you do.
So Snapdeal is obviously all things Bharat, and we have been focused on this market for the past 3-4 years now. The challenge initially was obviously to get people to understand that that value lifestyle can happen and you can shop it. You don't need to go out and go to the nearest, say, the market. Because the challenge with Snapdeal, the main competitor of Snapdeal is none of these other value e-commerce players. It's actually that local market that people would very comfortably go in. So it was very important for us to give that sort of warm experience, because whenever we were talking to customers, we realized that why they love shopping at the local market is confidence. Because when that guy from tier 2, tier 3 walks into a mall, he or she feels that I am very limited by my choice. I can only choose from what I can afford. So that was step number one, to make sure that everything is affordable. So today, 95% of all Snapdeal products which are listed are under 1,000. And 80% is at 750 and lower also. So then the customer feels very comfortable. Here, I can buy whatever I can. And that's also sort of a mentality shift that as a team, marketing team, and as a company we had to do. Because sitting at AC offices in Delhi, Bombay, we often tend to think like us. So for us, mobile for Bharat and mobile marketing for Bharat is actually not about one big idea or two big ideas and doing something, like a big event once a year and then attract crowds. It's about doing those 100 small changes that happens throughout the year to make sure that the brand experience matters, because these guys are not necessarily brand hungry. Had it been so, then they wouldn't buy value, right? They would only buy, say, a Levi's ka denim. They would not come to Snapdeal. So it's very important that the brand experience is consistent with respect to their value mindset. And we have done this, and we have been rewarded very handsomely in the past for this.
Thanks, Amit. Great point, and nice to hear you talk about the brand experience. And when I come back on the second time, I'd love to ask you a little bit about how do you enhance the user experience, and how different are users in smaller towns? Are they very similar to how, let's say, folks like us behave, but how they do? But moving on to you, Anita, I want to just get a sense. I know that Patanjali as a brand kind of created a storm in the FMCG market. You guys really penetrated deep into the spectrum. And things that the traditional FMCG majors, the P&Gs and Levers took decades to build, you guys bridged in a short time. And of course, based on the brand ambassador himself, how effectively do you all reach out to these audiences in small towns, and to what extent do you use mobile as a medium to get there?
Thanks, Lloyd. It's very interesting in this age of mobile, and speaking about how have we penetrated, the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, and the rural markets was a very traditional way of doing it. So we have our own stores. We've got about 5,000 stores, which are Patanjali mega stores across. And we also have franchisee stores where, our stuff is available. And then we have these, something called Gramin Arogya Kendras, which are like very, very small stores where you do not need too much space, and the money involved is very, very little. So to that extent, you can have almost like a Gramin Arogya Kendra. In one street, you can have 5 of them, for example, because the requirement is not as much. So it almost becomes equal to mobile for us. Yeah, because the penetration of mobile in the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 markets, today we are talking about, if we're talking about shopping, like Soumya said on Snapdeal, there's been almost a 50 to 55% increase in online shopping, which is coming only from tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 markets, thanks to COVID, of course, but also the fact that 70% of our audience, India is, Bharat is in these markets, which gives you a lot of opportunity. What we need to really do, and maybe, because we've had this network of our shops and stores here, I think what we are now concentrating on is really using the habit of mobile or shopping online or the use of the device in various aspects across the 70% of the population to see how we can get them to actually do m-commerce, more than anything else. Because we're not like, something which gets sold on Snapdeal or on Meesho. We are an FMCG company. So there's ghee, there's atta, there's biscuits, there's honey, there's toothpaste, there is hair oil. So given that, to be able to really convert more of this buying through mobile, and hence, topping the m-commerce thing is something that, we are really working on. And given the fact that today the penetration of smartphones, given the, as you mentioned, that, the pricing has gone down, so you can today get a decent smartphone anywhere between 2,000 to 4,000. The experience, again, of any brand or any transaction on that phone is going to be very different. And thanks to the likes of Jio and Airtel, etc., who've brought the data pricing down, and hence more usage of that. Plus, I think the other bigger advantage where you get your audiences caught on mobile is also the advent of OTTs. I mean, you'll be surprised that the in-house apps or indigenously built apps in these areas of tier 2, tier 3 are the ones which are getting a lot of users, And that, of course, then again becomes an opportunity for brands like, for any category of brands to really go on there. So what I would say is that we are getting in there, and I think by the time we get in there, we'd probably be in that sweet spot where everything would have been set. Yeah.
Thanks, Anita. Great perspective. And I want to just get across to Shantanu, and he represents noise that is largely into wearables, both smartwatches and earphones. To an extent, the general belief is that wearables as a category, smartwatches and earphones are relatively urban and a slightly more upmarket phenomena. To what extent do you see noise, the impact that noise can make as you go lower down, or as you go into rural India and to Bharat? Love to hear your perspective.
I mean, hi guys. I think the growth which we have got is completely by the tier 2, tier 3 markets. It's no more the urban phenomena. And very interesting data point which I told you also is we are now globally number 3. And we're just supply in India right now. And I would say the first is Apple, second is Samsung, and the third is noise in India right now. And this penetration have definitely started with, which you already pointed out about the entry price for the tier 3 and tier 4 smaller markets, where exactly the new shoppers have joined. So as per, we work very closely with Flipkart, and in one of the white papers by Bain and Company at Flipkart, they told in 2021, there were about 180 to 190 million shoppers were there, okay? And out of them, the growth which was there for the 40 to 50 million growth came from 2020 itself, which was completely from the tier 3 and the smaller cities. And a very interesting point is 1 in 3 was a Gen Z. It opens up the market in itself, but these are the people who are actually buying us. And this opens up an opportunity for social-led commerce, virtual live commerce. You got an opportunity for D2C, and how the world is, for the mature market, it changes to the quick commerce, which is again gaining a popularity in this segment. And what could be the new thing which we will come across could be the customer experience side of the business, which is AR, VR, vernacular searches, which has seen a great growth, no doubt about it. And comparatively, try-ons and a lot of filters in the Snapchats have already started, a lot of try-ons features and everything, which I think Flipkart, we did a couple of activities with Amazon and Flipkart both, and also in the live commerce. Though it's a very nascent stage, but haven't got a success yet out of China and Southeast Asia, but we can see some movement over there, for sure.
Thanks, Shantanu. I'm going to move to the two healthcare specialists on our panel, Dipinder and Harish. And Dipinder, first to you, and you represent Pristine Healthcare. You may want to tell the audience a little bit about what Pristine does, and how do you see mobile as an integral part of your strategy?
So, Pristine model has always been a digital-first model. We know that, just to give you a background, Pristine is a secondary healthcare surgery provider. It's a complete healthcare solution for secondary surgeries. Secondary surgeries are somewhat which you can plan at a later point in time. Now, if you look at it, if I said that you need a surgery, the first thing that comes to your mind is a hospital. It is not that let me go online and find someone who can do my surgery. So for us, that first blocker which was there, that when the co-founders actually started, was you will fail. People go to hospitals. And we've broken that thing that actually people are searching for solutions online. Mobile drives a lot of, if I were to tell you that how much percentage of my traffic is driven by internet, it's 99%. Only 1% of my entire revenue generation happens from offline, that someone walks into my clinic right away, seeing that, hey, that's a clinic, let me go in there. So that is where mobile and internet are a critical part of our ecosystem. What we've done over the time period is that, our pages are not created for desktop. because 95% of our traffic is mobile, right? And for that, it's highly critical that, we have pages which are specifically mobile. We've recently launched our app also. We are trying to figure out if it is the right use case for them. Because it becomes easier when you have a app in the hand of a user where they can reach out to us very easily. And specifically, when we went into the COVID, right? A lot of people were still in distress. They still were suffering from diseases, and mobile played a very important role in terms of consultations and all. You don't have, because not everyone had an access to a desktop at that time or a laptop, but everyone had an access to a mobile phone which had a camera with which you can talk to a doctor. And that's what helped us scale also at that time. And going towards a tier 2 and tier 3, they are very critical. Reason, they are one of the neglected markets. Just to give you one very specific data point, in India, a person travels 5 hours on an average to get the surgery done. If you're looking for a surgical solution, you have to travel for 5 hours. That's across India. Reason, a lot of our infrastructure is not available in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. That is where Pristine is trying to break. That, since we are not we are an asset-light model, we are able to go to the tier 2 cities and replicate the same technological advancements which are available in the tier 1 and be able to serve those guys. And it is not that they don't have the purchasing power to have that. They have the purchasing power. It is just that the travel is such a hectic task. We're trying to simplify that. So that's it.
Thanks, Dipinder. I think that's helpful and very interesting. So effectively, it's like taking, surgical healthcare to smaller town India, where the physical infrastructure may not always be there, but you kind of provide the network. And therefore, extending to the discussion to Medanta. And Harish, since you do digital marketing in Medanta, how do you guys, you have, let's say, a limited amount of physical hospitals, right? You've got 5 hospitals, the Gurgaon one, of course, being the largest. How do you see mobile as a way in which you can reach out to potential patients and customers?
See, with this category, you have to go closer. Yeah. So with this category is that everybody knew and acknowledged that quality healthcare is not available in tier 2, tier 3 towns. Everybody came on the podium and said that they wanted to do a lot of things, but frankly speaking, none of the OEMs was doing it. And hence there were advents of Practo or Pristine Care because there was a gap in the service which was there and there. The difference between, if you want to understand a Pristine Care and a Medanta or a Max or any other hospital is, they specialized in secondary care services, which is more elective surgeries. For super specialty services, which is tertiary care, people do still find it more convenient and more trustworthy to go to a hospital. That is there. And then again in this category, there are 2 eras, you can say, a pre-COVID era and a post-COVID era. In pre-COVID era, the whole focus of the category was that you give some kind of convenience to a user in tier 2, tier 3 towns. Basic example of this is that one can access his health records on his mobile phone. But what has happened is in the post-COVID era, that is there, earlier there were inhibitions both from supply side and the demand side. When we say supply side, that the doctors didn't want to do a lot of virtual consults. On the demand side, when we say even people don't want to come and have a virtual consultation with the doctor because at any given point of time, if you have a disease, you find it more soothing if you visit a doctor and see his face and listen from his own mouth. That is there. But this has changed in the post-COVID era. In the post-COVID, what we have seen is that people are now okay with doing a virtual consult. That is there. And in this scenario or context, what we have seen is that approximately now 65% plus business of at least Medanta is coming from tier 2, tier 3 towns, which is outside of the top 20 cities. How mobile or digital, mobile as a device or digital as a technology is providing this is that now we have opened up, we have seen that in the last 2-3 years, approximately if you see, top line of 10 to 15% comes from online, and out of that, approximately 40% of this is primarily through virtual consults and all. And hence, as an organization, we are penetrating towards having a lot of e-ICUs, telemedicine centers in the tier 2, tier 3 world. We amplify this over there so that the general users know that you can have a virtual consult with the doctor, you can have a quality care available to you, which is more in the form of second opinions. So somebody, for example, to give you an example, why do people come to so super specialized hospitals? That unfortunately, or God forbid, if somebody has been diagnosed with a surgery, like a cancer surgery or a heart surgery, generally as a tendency what people do is they take a second opinion from a more specialized hospital. This is the general phenomena. Earlier this was not available, like Devendra said, people used to travel 5-6 hours to at least take a second opinion. Surgery is the secondary thing that is there. That, with the help of mobile as a device and technology, is now facilitated. People can take things over there at their own convenience, the advice and all. And second is, now we are moving towards the fact that even the doctor ecosystem which is there, or the smaller hospital ecosystem which is there, which is not equipped with the knowledge of super specialized surgeries, or at least the first level of surgery that needs to be managed. So Medanta is moving towards having e-ICUs, at least 25 to 30 e-ICUs in the next 1 year, where the organization, if a critical case like a brain stroke case comes at any particular hospital where the first 4 hours is extremely critical, that general physician over there can do a virtual consult with the neurosurgeon over here and can do the first level of surgery over there. So then the user is also getting aware that it is not that he has to travel for these amount of time. For somebody sitting in Odisha or a particular village over there can at least take the first level of treatment over there. So that is also getting solved. So both on the user side and on the doctor ecosystem and other ecosystem that we are solving.
Fantastic. So I think what I heard you say is really how the mobile expansion has helped take healthcare to the last mile. And I think 2 data points that are worth repeating. I think about 60 to 65% of Medanta's traffic comes outside the top 20 metro cities. And you said about 15% of your total revenues come through online. Is that right? And about 40% of that is about virtual consultation. Wow, that's some remarkable data points. And in a sense, it's really tells you how deep the penetration has happened literally in the last 5 years. And before I get to Archana, I think also a good point for us to reflect as Indians is what we've achieved on the back of this deep mobile penetration. I mean, we saw the ease with which our vaccination process happened, and the relative automation, the fact that we don't have to carry hand-signed papers and such like, we have it on our phones. And even things like Digi-Yatra and, Digi-Locker. Digi-Yatra is what we're all learning the hard way as we go to the airports. But I think the pace, the depth has actually made a lot of last mile services become easy. And irrespective of which side of the political divide, I think it's really been possibly ahead of most countries in the world. I mean, just the deep penetration of mobile wallets and the fact that we can make payments for even 10 rupees through our phones, it's phenomenal. So as a key enabler of the ecosystem, Airtel has played a big role through this over the last 2 decades, Archana. And how deeply invested are you guys in terms of growing this market as you go deeper? I think you've got about 350 million or 400 million customers. And also, you guys are also a huge platform for advertisers, right? If I have to reach, customer number 700 million in India, you penetrate almost as deep as television, certainly more than print given literacy. So how big is the advertising potential for Airtel? And also, how do you all see the overall market play out?
So you're right. In terms of, there's lots of these apps of ours, which is Wink, Extreme. There's the utility app, which is Airtel Thanks, which allows you to do recharges, see all the possible things that you have. But there is still a challenge among a lot of consumers, right? And just when COVID hit, I think a lot of consumers got challenged of saying, now how do I recharge my phone, right? They're okay to e-commerce shopping online because there is this option of cash on delivery, right? So it was easy for them to go order something because there was a cash on delivery. But a lot of people still prefer to go to the local retailer to do a recharge. And what we saw during COVID is because suddenly, because with UPI, making UPI very easy, a lot of people started moving online. So I think that ecosystem, the development of the ecosystem, the logistics actually has helped open the tier 2, tier 3 cities, right? So we see a lot of our recharges now coming from online. That's number one. App penetration, because the way the apps are, app penetrations are still fairly urban. Not so much tier 2, tier 3, especially not tier 3, but it's going down to tier 2 soon. And it is slowly penetrating. I think one of the things that we are also developing from an ecosystem is like, today, like broadband is known as an urban, for example, broadband is known as an urban phenomenon, right? Only big cities, large cities have. But the fact is that now we are actually penetrating broadband even into the smaller cities, right? And we had a very simple concept when we did advertising around it. And we did advertise, we launched Gorakhpur, we did some basic local advertising in that market, right? Or Sonipat for that matter. Now, 5, 6 years ago, I never even think that broadband would penetrate into so deep, but it is penetrating. And our concept was very simple. Internet like, office-like internet is what you get through broadband, right? That was the simple message, because everybody thinks office internet is super fast, right? And nothing else is as good as office internet. So saying, all of these tier 2, tier 3 people also have aspirations. Given the amount of information overload that they get, they have similar aspirations like urban India. The fact that there is a whole parallel economy in terms of apps which are available, which I think even we as Airtel has not started advertising on, but one of the things we discovered was that YouTube still is like a big platform that gets watched by this audience. So from a reach standpoint, like YouTube becomes a very critical platform for us from an advertising standpoint. So we also have a lot of consumers who are on 2G, right? And they just use their phone. They have a feature phone. They use it only for calling. And that's a phone which they use. So while there is a huge penetration, there is a subset of that audience which is not doing anything on their phones, but other than using them as to make calls, to basically staying in touch. And even all the work, they don't want to even move. They find that this is the perfect thing. They don't need that the data. But tier 2, the younger audiences, the younger generation is the one actually, the Gen Z, and now I've heard a new term called Gen Alpha or something like that, who is now actually getting into it because they are digital natives, right? And they are the ones who are actually discovering and teaching now their family members on various things on digital. So I think in the next 2-3 years, I think the penetration and the kind of depth that we'll see in mobile will be far higher, even in a slightly older generation, which today is slightly weak. But yeah, that's the...
Thanks, Archana. Great perspective from a key enabler of the mobile ecosystem in Airtel. And like you said, it's the younger people that are at the forefront of it. Like in any home, we say that the youngest person is the chief digital officer. He knows things well ahead of the rest of the family. But I want to come across back to Soumya, and you talked about the fact that Snapdeal, let's say, looks at this middle India market, right? Not the, let's say, the top 30, 40 million who possibly do a lot of Amazon or whatever, and also not maybe beyond a certain point. So people who are conscious of a value buy, but may not necessarily be brand conscious. So I want a good pair of jeans. Maybe I don't want maybe I can't afford a Levi's, but I want something that drives value. How different are their usage habits? How critical is UX? So when someone goes to a small town where internet connectivity may not always be 4G, maybe patchy, how critical is UX in terms of Snapdeal's app development? And how do you also fight to ensure that you get pride of place in the overcrowded app ecosystem? And I'm just saying this because all of us on our phone, we struggle the number of apps you can have. Right? Typically, we all shorten it down to, say, 2 cab apps, maybe an Uber, Ola, maybe 2 or 3 shopping apps, 2 or 3 of our favorite chats or whatever. So how do you navigate the usage experience in the context of Snapdeal?
So that's a very interesting question, and we internally debate a lot about this. So there are 2 parts to this. One is obviously how do you make a dent in that app ecosystem, in that sort of the homepage real estate, right? And the second is in-app. Once the customer is inside the app, then how do we do it? So on the first step, I think the ease of finding product and the price point is supremely important, because how do you do marketing or how do you do branding for an audience who doesn't care about a brand? Like, that is the fundamental challenge that I have been battling since day one. And it's very beautiful. Is if the price point is right, if the product that the customer has ordered, and everybody starts small. Like, in an average, the first order of a new user will be around 150 rupees. And they'll order something very basic, say something like a, like a kitchen utensil, not even apparel. Although kitchen utensil is something also very large with Snapdeal, and all the fancy stuff that you used to see at Muji and all that today, earlier, now is also available in small town thanks to Snapdeal, and now also local retailers, all those, those choppers and all that. So they will order something very small if they like the quality, and definitely they'll return. First time they'll definitely return. So for us, and these are very, very crucial. It feels like a intuitive thing today, but when we started, we used to get agitated कि यार इतना return क्यों हो रहा है? But now we go with the truth कि भाई return तो होगा ही होगा, because that's how they are testing you. Can I trust this? ठीक है, 150 rupees का सामान if I am returning, tomorrow if I order a 750 का kurta and that comes bad, will these guys take it back? Because it's that market experience. कि यार market में तो I will go back and I'll throw this on the shopkeeper's face कि भैया क्या दे दिया? Will I get this experience? So once you keep doing that consistency of experience, then customers will come, because it's a habit building. They're not concerned about the price. They can afford everything on Snapdeal. They will check us. They will check a couple of our competitors also. We are not living in the fool's paradise that they will only do appointment, visiting only our app. That's not going to happen. They're going to check a couple of other apps also, and if they find the price right, and they'll do it. So that's the answers the first question. Now on the second bit is once they land up on the, on the app. So there is a storefront, which is, your landing pages, home page, category page, PDP. And then there is another battle starts is how do you convert from add to cart to actually booking that order? Because this is the common problem all across e-commerce, right? Which is cart abandonments. Now, I'll start from the bottom, like how the cart abandonment issue, how it is very different for tier 2 audiences. Now, if you go to any top of the funnel app, right, you will see in the address panel, there are multiple boxes. So you'll say, okay, apartment, then it'll come street, then it'll come locality, then pin code. So there are like 3-4 those boxes. Customers do not understand that. What they do is they have it copy paste. Most of them, plus we also live in, bigger towns where our address is known. Okay, this is the tower, this is the apartment, and this is the street. In Kanpur, there is no, street name. There is no, it's ke, acha, baju wala, wo teli ke baju mein, wahan pe ek pole hai, uske baju. That's how delivery happens, even with us. So, we were troubled with this, कि यार, add to cart होता है, customer goes to the address page and then abandons it. So, intent तो है, why are they not converting? So, we started doing some A/B tests, कि हमने क्या किया, जो address box है, we removed all those, those boxes and made it into one. So, no separate pin code box also. While it gets very easy for the marketing team, कि pin code अलग से मिल गया और marketing, सब हटा दिया. Abhi, the customer comes and copy paste the entire address on one address box, and through tech we solve out. We figure out कि अच्छा ये pin code है, and then we figure the delivery. Huge improvement, in terms of from order to booked order. So that happened. Now coming one step ahead. So that's how we sorted the, the importance of UX at the very, very at the, purchase funnel. Slightly above, when it comes to the storefront, it is extremely important that the customer gets to see the original price point and the markdown price point, which is, I think, today all brands do it. Apart from that, sizes are important, the colors are important. I think Amazon has really sort of led this with their A+ content of how to do the sizing and that sizing chart. So now this has become like a pretty much of a grammar, at least in apparel, no matter which, whether you're in value or not. People now tend to expect that. So those things are there. Now coming to search. Now we were having the discussion earlier about vernacular and all that. Now, while it is very cool to discuss vernacular in all these forums, the point is it's sad that it took us 75 years, and I think it's globally unique. For the first time ever, where internet was developed, not in the language of the people speak. Nowhere it has happened, you know, from Europe or China, Brazil, everywhere. Internet has always developed first in their vernacular language and then people have graduated to English. India, it happened the opposite. Now, vernacular searches, the problem with vernacular searches is customers don't know the Hindi translation of jeans. And they search GINS. Tell me which algorithm, which Google algorithm, phrase match, broad match can catch GINS into jeans. But that's how customers search jeans on our platform. So before vernacular, we had to solve this. कि अगर कोई GINS search कर रहा है, तो we have to map it and show that guy's denims. So that's where again the user experience, like I was saying, that they're the small things of how you improve the experience every day.
So great example, Soumya. Deeply appreciate that. And I just want to link it to a larger issue, I think, with a whole seasoned mobile marketeers here. Back in 2009, I think India showed the way forward in the world on e-commerce when we became the first country in the world to do cash on delivery. Right? One of the big constraints when Amazon and Flipkart launched back then was that there's a very, very tiny audience. One, of course, because penetration of the internet itself was low, and also trust with e-commerce. And of course, it started largely early days with books and music. But the whole challenge was a lot of people had this trust issue, and we were used in the old postal system to have the VPP, the value post parcel or whatever, where you actually paid cash on delivery. And when India opened cash on delivery, that's when the first boom of e-commerce happened. And today, that option has been taken by Amazon India into more than 70 countries of the world. Right? So there's a large part of the world where India plays the lighthouse, right? South Africa, Africa rather, or South America, parts of it, and of course parts of Asia, Indonesia and Vietnam, cash on delivery is big. So I think it's a clear example of how, thanks to great innovation by Indian companies, we not only change the rules of the game in India, but we actually show the light to global companies globally around the world.
And free delivery. Like, I don't think globally ever it happens. Like, when I talk to my friends, कि free delivery India में तो, if you don't have any app you open, right? Myntra, Amazon, Snapdeal, all these apps, free delivery का banner permanent लगा रहता है. क्योंकि free delivery नहीं है तो कोई order नहीं आने वाले.
Yeah. But therefore, the other example you gave also about address panels, right? In a place where you describe, pan ke dukaan ke piche mein rehta hu. I mean, how do you say that in, tight boxes? Great stuff, Soumya. Thank you so much. And moving to you, Anita, and, the context of the fact that Patanjali is deeply penetrated in the brick and mortar sense, right? You go to small towns, small villages, there are stores, and Baba Ramdev is truly an icon. How do you replicate that into the mobile ecosystem? Are you brick and mortar first when you go to a small village which has a population of, say, 500? Or do you also see the power of mobile as you get there?
So, Patanjali is truly a Bharat brand, yeah? And I don't think there's any other FMCG brand which is as penetrated as Patanjali is in the tiers that we are talking about. So while we have brick and mortar, initially before the mobile advent happened, everybody had brick and mortar, right? So while we have brick and mortars and well-established ones and they're doing extremely well, I think there's a large chunk of that audience which is sitting with their mobile phones. And we cannot close our eyes to say that, my brick and mortar will do what it is supposed to do. So we also have an app. Order Me is an app that Patanjali has, and you can, like any other stuff that you order online is something that you can order on that app, and the deliveries happen. And vernacular, by the way, so there's a lot of vernacular stuff that goes in here, because even if you look at our advertising, we're Hindi first, because we are very strong in the HSM markets and stuff like that. And again, Bharat being, the core of the brand, and I think the vision that Swamiji has. So given that, it's not as though we're not exploring the advantages that a mobile, as a gadget, and of course what comes with it is brings to the table. Even whether it's free delivery, whether it is COD, everything is available on that app as well. And essentially for this kind of audience, as Soumya was mentioning, the ticket item has to be low. The value has to be low. Whether it's your platform or whether it's Meesho, where things, you get a damn fancy dress for $200, So there, the ticket size is smaller. And in our case, as you compare our product categories to various FMCGs, the it's attractively priced, if I may use that word, you know. So given that situation, I think automatically a large chunk of our business does come from brick and mortar, but there is essentially a part of our business which comes through, you know, the mobile application and m-commerce. Much needs to be done, I'll be honest, because the penetrations are so deep and the category that we operate in. You know, so it's not, you know, you're ordering kitchen utensils or jeans or any such thing. I mean, soap, right, sugar, atta, biscuits, you know, so the category that you're operating in also makes a lot of difference, you know. Even in downtown, people still feel that वो आटे को जाके measure करके लेके आना 5 किलो कितना होता है. You know, पता नहीं मेरे पास online में आ रहा है तो कहीं 4.5 तो नहीं है. So those nuances one has to take care of. So I think it's a combination.
Fantastic. And I want to come to Shantanu in the context of the fact that your product is generally considered relatively more urban, right? People tend to think of wearables as you know, more city slickers and, you know, Apple watches and such like. And how do you guys use it? And I also want to contextualize it by saying that a big part of what we do in marketing, mobile marketing, is really about this whole new emergence of new formats. Archana talked about YouTube, which is effectively India's largest single channel. But there are emergent of a whole lot of these small short video platforms, right? TikTok is not in the country, but you've got this whole range of it, you know, the Moj and the, you know, Roposo and Chingari, of course, one of our sponsors. But more critically, also about vernacular first. The fact that ShareChat, right, which has 100 million users, how do you use the vernacular and use influencers or nano-influencers on short video platforms to promote noise?
Thank you. This is very interesting, especially for us into the tech side of the business. People definitely aspire to get into a fitness zone. It's more like a gym membership. You buy it and you change yourself into a fashion. So what we have observed on the app itself, we have got our own app ecosystem. People love changing out watch faces, and that gives us a clear indication where we actually need to route it to. And we started more like a fashion lifestyle. We started selling more like a fashion lifestyle, which helped us in increasing our reach beyond health tech itself. So one was this, and related to the vernacular side of the business, where often you see your tech reviews on YouTube. So there are English, there are Hindi, but we also go on different languages. And a very interesting fact, coming from a very performance point of view, we always give a UTM trackers to every YouTubers across. And the second best conversions out of them comes from the vernacular side of the YouTubers. And that gives us a lot of indications in itself ki how effective these influencers are. So I think this will again grow the social-led commerce part of the business, for sure.
Can I just add one thing?
Sure.
So when we explored this whole influencer in the short form platforms, short form video platforms, I think our big learning, which as marketers we had to take back, is we were very used to influencers on YouTube and Insta and like who are pretty polished, and the moment you go down to the to these short form video platforms, the influencers are very local, very small, with maybe micro following or micro influencers and all. Their dialects, their accents, the way they speak is very different, sometimes even the brand. So we had to actually allow a lot of leeway into the way we wanted them to be themselves while they were promoting the brand and we had to live with the fact that it could be the pronunciation of the brand or something. Some of the pronunciations would not be really what we are used to, because that's what they're, and that's what attracts their followers. And I think that's a big learning we had when we did our first. And like the first time I saw the video, I was like, no, what is this? This is just not on brand. And we had to really take a step back and saying, no, we let it go. It's fine, because that's what their followers are okay with and understand it.
Thanks, Archana.
I think that's a very good point, and all brand marketers have faced it. I think more about whether the audiences are okay with or not. I think that is what it adds authenticity, because if you force that guy to say it in a certain way, then the performance that you're getting from that content will not come.
Yeah, it's like they say the best content is created by people who are native to the platform, right?
Absolutely.
When radio first came into India, a lot of TV jingles were repurposed for radio. And then effectively they realize that the best radio formats are RJs who understand their audience and can create relevant content. But quickly, we're almost running out of time. So Dipinder, I want to ask you one quick question. Is the fact that healthcare being critical category, and you guys specializing in surgery, it's like surgery as a service, to what extent do you do a lot of your language, a lot of your communication through vernacular languages, right? Because people in smaller towns may not be familiar with English, but they still have a healthcare need, they have a serious surgical need. And like you said, you don't do immediate surgery, it's more like things that you can plan. So how do you handle that aspect?
So what we started off was as a brand, as every Indian brand, we were first in English. And then we went to tier 2 and then we failed. And then we said that, what should we do? So a problem with the tier 2 towns that because we went in the market too early, what we saw was that it's an intent-based need. So not a lot of search volumes existed. And problem was we were searching for an English word called cataract and people were searching motiabind. And it's not just that it's motiabind. In South part, it's called something else. In Gujarat, it's called something else. So every time we are entering a market, the first thing we do is, acha, what is the local language? What is our diseases called in those local languages? Have those pages ready. What are the people searching for in the local languages? So to give you an aspect, a person might still search cataract, but when my care coordinator picks up the call, the conversation is in Hindi. It's not in English. It's rarely a time we have discovered that a person is completely fluent in English and wants to talk. Same way, if you go to, even on the Punjab side, if you'll go, they'll be talking in Punjabi. The accent, the requirement is such that our coordinators are specifically talking language. And even every page is created. So even if you would search for motiabind in English, I know you want to read it in Hindi. So by default, when you search that, I have to take you to a page which is in Hindi, and we've seen that the conversions jump. And that's how it is. They understand the language, they understand the disease, and they know what they're looking for. But if you'll try to serve them, so let's say if they say, I want a purse, and you say, hey, here's a bag, they'll not buy it.
Thanks, Dipinder. Just one last point to add to that is the fact that one of the big projections, in fact, I believe today the number is closer to 35%, but likely to extend, is voice searches. The fact that a lot of younger people are going to use voice first, right? There's a whole generation growing up that talk to Alexa and Siri more than their parents. But in due course, voice searches will actually be the primary driver and hopefully, take the pressure off. I presume very similar experiences with you, Harish, but I'm getting repeated bells from the organizers. So I guess we'll have to call it out at this point. But great discussion. We could go on forever. And thank you all for sharing your perspective. And thanks for the audience for your patient listening soon after lunch. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Can I please request the ones who have already gotten off stage to join us back, please, for a group photograph. It's been a very, very fruitful session and definitely didn't require too much of patience because the topics that were covered were very, very interesting and interactive.